Okay, everybody. Hi, good afternoon, I think. Yes. My name is Jason Williams. I'm one of the assistant directors here at the Cold Spring Harbor DNA Learning Center, and I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I am very, very pleased to introduce Mrs. Victoria Gray, who has joined us, and she's going to tell you all about her inspiring story because the fact of the matter is that we all, whether it's ourselves or our relatives, have challenges, and sometimes it's a health challenge that faces us where we don't know what's going to happen and we don't know if there's anyone who can help us. But part of the answer is that science and medicine advances because we have students who had a passion and continued it into a career and were able to contribute. But the story is going to be told as an interview. So we're happy to have two high school students here, Josh, who is here in person, and Erin, who will tell you her excuse, which is a very valid one, for being online. And they're going to have an interview for about 20 or 30 minutes to hear the story that Mrs. Gray has traveled all day yesterday to get here, including delays at LaGuardia, getting into LaGuardia, which those of us in New York know. So Josh and Erin, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so first I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Joshua Paz. I'm from Queens, New York, and I'm a recently graduated senior from the Q4 school. And next year I'm a rising freshman at the University of Pennsylvania. So I'm excited to that. One thing I'm interested in, I'm really deeply interested in science, and I care for biology, genomics, and also public health. So that's just a little about me, and I'm just gonna pass it on to Erin.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Erin Garnier. I live in Valley Stream. I'm a rising senior at Valley Stream North High School. I joined the STARS program in the summer of 2022 after my freshman year, and it was so great to work and have all the lab experience and keep in touch with the amazing network of mentors and the alumni network. I'm deeply interested in biology and genomics, which is why I'm very passionate about this topic. And I'm sorry that I'm unable to be with you all in person because I'm currently attending a summer program called the Yale Young Global Scholars in New Haven, Connecticut. So that's a little about me.
All right, so I think we're ready to start the interview. So my first question is to Miss Victoria Gray. My first question is, can you just share your experiences being like a public speaker and an advocate for gene editing technologies since your treatment?
Well, my experience with being a public speaker is one that has been nerve-wracking for me because I hated public speaking in college. I just didn't like all eyes on me. But after my treatment, I felt like this was my purpose, my calling, to share hope with other people who are suffering, not just with sickle cell disease, but any type of disease. Because before my treatment, I felt hopeless, I felt voiceless, and there were many times where I felt like no one cared about my disease, I was struggling alone, I didn't have a community and sense of others with sickle cell disease because I do come from a small community. So the only other two people that I met in life with sickle cell disease had passed away within a couple of years of me knowing them, 2 years, 4 years. So I felt like that was my destiny too. Sickle cell was my beginning and would be my end. So when my life changed for the better through science and my faith, I knew I needed to share this with other people.
Yeah, that's very inspiring that you turned your experience into a form of advocacy. My first question is, what has it been like being one of the first individuals to undergo treatment for sickle cell disease using CRISPR technology? What was the consideration process like before, and what was the aftermath like?
Well, hearing that I would be the first, of course, was nerve-wracking. When Dr. Frangul, he approached me at my bedside and he explained the CRISPR option because I was looking into bone marrow transplant, but feared graft versus host. And when he explained that a study was opening up and that I would be the first if I signed up, and I was like, the first ever? Have it ever been? He's like, yeah, in mice and monkeys. So was like, oh Lord, but I only had 2 other questions. I wanted to know, was there a chance of graft versus host? When he said no, because the cells I would be receiving would be my own cells, my body wouldn't attack it. It would be known. So that gave me relief. And my second question was, if it didn't work, would I still be able to move forward with other treatment options like bone marrow transplant? And when he gave me that reassurance that if after 1 year it didn't work, that I could move forward with something else. So I knew it wouldn't be an end all if it didn't work. So I moved next to my faith in God and asked for peace with it. God, if this is my gateway to my miracle, take away all fears and hesitation. And when the fears was gone and I was able to give Dr. Frangoul my yes, I went into it with an open mind and open heart.
What was the aftermath like?
The aftermath of treatment, amazing. But to understand the aftermath, you have to know the beginning. I received my diagnosis of sickle cell disease while having my first crisis at the age of 3 months old. And then they told my mom that I would only live to see 7 years old. That was just the beginning of the struggles that I would face my entire life. So from elementary, not elementary, but pre-K, I remember my first crisis, coming home after school, looking forward to go outside, being a normal kid with my best friend Candace, wondering what we was gonna get into that evening. But as I was changing clothes, all of a sudden I had pain shoot down one of my arms, and then it moved across my chest like lightning, down my other arm, and then down my back. It was though I got struck by lightning and hit by a Mack truck at the same time. It took me all the way down to the floor. My grandmother, she tried what the doctors told her to do, hot towels, give her Tylenol 3, water. We went into prayer, but nothing took me out of that crisis. We had to go to the hospital. I received blood transfusion, morphine, and I was in the hospital over a week. And that was a repetitive cycle throughout my whole life. Went from 1 week stays, 3 to 4 times a year, to 2 week stays, 4 to 6 times, then month stays. My longest stay in the hospital with a sickle cell crisis was 3 months. That crisis took away my ability to use my arms, my hands. I couldn't wash my face. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't use my legs. So I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. So there I was, early 20s, in a diaper, completely helpless and crippled by pain. And it took a few months of physical therapy to regain the use of my limbs again. So I had an inpatient caregiver that come into my home, help me do regular things like comb my hair, take baths, get dressed, prepare my meals, do laundry. So that would move me into wanting to seek some help, seek treatment. So life after, to answer Aaron's question, I said goodbye to my PCA. I do all those things on my own. I get dressed on my own. I prepare meals for myself, my husband, my children. I get to be in attendance at my kids' sports activities, football games, cheer. I travel. I never flew before with my sickle cell disease because doctors talked about all the complications with altitude change, could send me into crisis, cause problems in my spleen, so we avoided it. But my first flight was in 2020 to visit my husband while he was on military deployment. So my life has changed completely from what it was before.
It seems like this decision has been life-altering. So my question is, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about CRISPR gene editing technologies? And what would you say to people with those misconceptions?
There are a lot of misconceptions. I've seen some articles say, oh, they're injecting patients with HIV virus for cures, and they're being experimented on. And I even heard a doctor, I know it's crazy, make a joke that, she's gonna have superpowers to be in here lifting stuff, super strength. But the truth is, it only altered a certain part of my genome, it turned back on the switch that created hemoglobin F, which is the hemoglobin that babies have to prevent sickling. So that was the only thing it changed about me. I don't have any super strength. I would have loved to have super strength, but that didn't happen. So, and they didn't use an HIV virus to bring about my change. I wasn't injected with HIV. It was CRISPR-Cas9 study that they was looking at bacteria to change, to create the cut and to change that coding in my DNA. And it was very specific, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad that you were able to overcome all your challenges. And yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions that exist within the science world. My next question is, have you ever met or spoke with Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier, the discoverers of CRISPR? If you have, what was the conversation like? And if you haven't, what would you have wished to tell them?
I did get to speak with Dr. Jennifer Doudna, and it was via Zoom. In our conversation, she wanted to know about my experience and how I felt about it, and she gave me a thank you. And I also thanked her, and I want to thank everyone who took a part in transforming my life and looking at this disease when I thought no one cared. And one of her questions to me was if there was anything I could change about the process, my editing process, what would it be? And of course, I said the chemo portion, using busulfan to wipe out the immune system, because that was my biggest challenge, receiving the busulfan, the side effect. My hardest part was getting mucositis, the sores in my mouth and throat. I couldn't eat for 2 weeks. It hurt to swallow. So of course I would want to get rid of that part, because the injecting part was easy. The harvesting part, it was long, but I didn't have any problems. So she just asked me about how she could make it better. And she did reassure me that they would work on removing that part. I know it's going to take some time, but I'm hopeful.
And throughout this whole endeavor, what were the reactions of your family when you decided to and during the process, and how were they?
When I decided to do gene therapy, I just told a small group of people. I told my mom, dad, husband, kids, sister, brother. I didn't share, and I told my pastor, I didn't want to share it with everyone, because I didn't want to carry everyone's fears into my journey. But my family, they were scared, of course, afraid of the possibility of losing me, which come with any treatment, not just gene therapy, and afraid of it being new and possible side effects. But it was my time to express how I felt, honestly, with my family, that the chances of losing me was already high. My life wasn't enjoyable, and I wasn't having a good time, and just sticking it out with sickle cell disease, it was so many unknowns anyway. I was high risk for heart attacks, high risk for strokes, and there was a high possibility that one of my usual crises, as people may think, I could go into the hospital and wouldn't come out. You never knew what you was going to get in each crisis. Every time was different. And I was just ready to get off of the ride, having to explain myself every time I go in the ER and fight. So it was a decision that I had to make for me, and if they truly loved me, they would support me, and they did.
Wow, I'm so glad that you had a community and your faith and the ability to make that choice for yourself. And I know you touched on it a little bit before, but my next question was, what is your basic understanding of how CRISPR technology works in treating sickle cell disease, and what were the key steps involved in your treatment process?
So when Dr. Frangel explained it to me, he explained that in theory, that it would be like editing a textbook that had thousands and thousands of words, going into that going directly to that one word that was misread, misspelled, and correcting it. So, and he gave me a video, so I understood that they was using Cas9 from bacteria, and it would alter my BC11A gene, which I didn't know before, like what BC11A, but I understood that it was the gene for, to turn back on the switch of hemoglobin F, in which they hoped hydroxyurea would do. It did for a lot of patients, but it didn't for me. So this was my second chance of getting that gene flipped back on, and it turned out great. And the steps were long. I had to undergo weeks, months of testing, which included MRIs, pulmonary function test, liver function test, EKGs, echocardiograms. So it was a long process, and I also had to undergo apheresis, which I was already on a program. That's when they're taking my blood out every 4 to 6 weeks, removing it, replacing it with donor bloods, just in trying to keep me healthy, prevent crisis. But I still had crisis while going through this process of testing. And then I would have to go in the hospital. I did 2 cycles of this where I would get a shot in the back of my arm at night to mobilize my stem cells into my normal bloodstream to be collected. So collection phase was just getting on a machine that resembled the apheresis, but instead of giving me donor blood, I got my blood back. It spanned out my blood, collected the stem cells, and the stem cells that were collected went off to the lab. That process took about 6 hours per day, 3 days at a time. Then I went back home to Mississippi for a month, went back to Nashville and did that a second time. So I had 2 collection phases, which was 6 days total, 6 hours a day, to get my cells edited. They sent them off to a lab. It took about 2 months for me to receive them back. When they made it back to Nashville, I got admitted into the hospital for a long-term stay. I received 4 days of chemotherapy with the drug busulfan in June, at the end of June, and then on July 2nd, 2019, after 4 days of rest, I received my new cells, which I love to call my super cells. And those are the edited cells that changed my life. And that process was easy. Dr. Frangoul connected to the transfusion catheter in my chest. And it was about 3 valves, and the cells looked clear, it was glistening, and he just pushed them real fast. And I looked at him, and I was like, that's it? And we high-fived each other, and it was done. I stayed in isolation for 30 days and endured the side effects of the busulfan. The first one was hair loss, which I had prepared for mentally. My hair came off like a hat all at once in the middle of the night. My dad and we joked about it because he's naturally bald. So it was like, oh, I look like you. And my kids laughed when we called him on the phone, like, oh, you look like Papa now. But when I got the mucositis, it was no laughing matter. I actually shed tears because the pain was so bad in my mouth. I had pain everywhere with sickle cell, face, feet, arms, fingers, but never in my mouth. So it was a new pain, but it can't be compared to the pain that I experienced with sickle cell disease. It was just new, and I like to eat, so I was crying because I couldn't eat. But those were the steps. I stayed away from home and away from my children for about 2.5 months, and then I returned to be united with my family.
And my next question is, since this is such a transformative process, what are your thoughts on the accessibility and affordability of CRISPR technology for sickle cell patients? And also, what do you think are some important next steps for ensuring that it is equitable, is equitably distributed and accessible for many different people?
My thoughts on the price, I was like, oh my God, $2.1 million and the other treatment being right at $3 million. My thoughts were my family because I do have 2 younger cousins now that have sickle cell disease. It's like, we can't afford this. How will we even have it? Now it's that this great thing out there, and people don't have the resources to tap into it. Like, is it just gonna sit on the shelf and collect dust? Because most of us aren't rich, and it would take everything from our families to even try to do it. So it hurts, but I'm hopeful at the same time that the price would change over time, and that we as a people can work together to figure this out. It's not a job for one person or one group. We have to work together because life is valuable, and a lot of people out there aren't enjoying this life, not like other people are. The things we take for granted, as far as getting up in the morning, getting dressed, brushing your teeth, eating a meal every day, not everyone is enjoying that. Some people are suffering, struggling to breathe, struggling with pain that takes away their strength in their arms. They can't feed themselves. They can't take a bath. They can't put on their pants, like everyone says, one leg at a time. Everything requires assistance. So we should work together to ensure that it's available and it's accessible everywhere. And my thoughts is working with the insurance companies and governments, not just in the U.S., but everywhere, India, Africa, everywhere where this disease has a huge impact, to help them to understand the importance of this type of treatment and what it can do is really life-changing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hopefully, with time and new advancements in technology, everyone who needs this technology should have access to it and be relieved of their suffering. So my last question is, in what ways do you feel like the CRISPR treatment has provided you with new opportunities or freedoms that you did not have before? And what aspects of your life have been most positively affected by the CRISPR treatment for sickle cell, and why?
CRISPR has brought about many different changes for me. I'm now able to work full-time, for one, and contribute to my family. I get to show up for my entire family and people in my community by just being there, being able to show up for things that are important to them, not having to cancel plans because I had a crisis out of the blue and now I can't go. And I get to speak. Having a voice is important. I felt like as though I didn't have a voice before. That's something that CRISPR has given me now. Because there was many times where I was in the hospital being mistreated and I complained, and it was always excused by a person of authority. Oh, they didn't mean it maliciously. So I felt like my voice was taken away. The things that mattered to me seemed not to matter to others. But now I have a voice. I get to travel and be at places like this and even speak internationally. When I went to London, to inspire and bring about hope and to echo the voices of many sickle cell warriors, a lot of who are no longer here, not just because of the disease itself, but because of delays in treatment. When we go to the ER and say something wrong, no one believes us. So CRISPR has given me a lot of things, the opportunity to be a mother to my children. I remember when they was younger and wanted to go to park sometimes, I just didn't have the energy and I was in pain. So I was like, oh, we can't go. And to see the disappointment on their faces was hard. And not being able to prepare them meals sometimes when I had to get my PCA to do it. It made me feel like I wasn't being a mother, not doing things that mothers normally do for their children, but I get to do it all. And now I get to show up, be there for the good and the bad, even when my son stole my car in the middle of the night, a teenage thing, go and get him. So, and I get to show up for my husband when he's in the military actively and he gets deployed. I get to travel just like the other wives do via airplane to show up and be there for him and support him the same way he supported me throughout the years. So I get to be a part of society now and thrive, not just exist.
And with this new voice, what advice would you give to other patients considering CRISPR gene editing?
I would give my advice that I give to them now, because I do get to talk to a lot of the patients who consider gene editing. Ask questions to your provider. If you're afraid of something or what might happen, don't be afraid to ask questions and reach out. Now I'm not the only person who have underwent gene therapy. There's many others. So I allow them the space to ask questions to me, because they really who they want to hear from about how it was in my life after. But if they have concerns, ask their healthcare provider. And if you don't feel comfortable at a facility, you don't have to stay there. You have choices. So I give out a lot of advice. It's hard to go into detail because I get asked a lot of questions, and there are a lot of fears. And one other question is, how do you explain it to your family? And if your family don't support, and my advice is, this is a decision that you have to make for yourself, and the support will come. It may not come how you want it or where you think you should receive it from, but it comes. And if you do it for yourself, because we know firsthand how it's affecting us, so we make ourselves the priority.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I mean, I know I'm inspired, but I hope everyone else here is inspired, and it's been really great speaking to you today.
All right, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad that this treatment has liberated you and allowed you to provide for your family. Thank you for your inspiring insight. And I'm so glad that I had this opportunity to talk, because this topic is incredibly important, and this technology can have huge implications and positive outcomes for millions of people.
Thank you, Erin.